Hey, what's up guys, Aaron over here, and welcome back to the episode of my F1 2021 My Team Career Mode. Episode number 44 today for the Spanish Grand Prix in Season 3. If you guys did miss the previous episode at Portimao, the Portuguese Grand Prix, then be sure to go check that one out. It was the first time we've done Portimao on My Team Career Mode. Back-to-back new circuits, but now we're back to the kind of old familiar ones that we're used to in Career Mode here at Catalonia for this Spanish Grand Prix. But that was a difficult race at Portimao. You know, obviously we had that incident and crash, in qualifying, and then we had to come back through, and the pace of the car wasn't really there. And, Spain, it's not exactly like Portimao, but, there's similarities in terms of, the high-speed corners. There is some undulation, not as dramatic as Portimao, but there is some undulation. So, I don't know. I'm kind of a little bit fearful that maybe we might have another tough time around here. We'll have to find out, and, there may be, obviously, upgrades to the AI and whatnot, but right now it's early days in the championship. But Lando Norris, with 2 wins in 3 races, leads the way with a bit of a commanding lead in terms of career mode terms to Carlos Sainz in second in the Ferrari, myself in third. Schumacher there down the order a little bit with 16 points to his name, but it's mighty close in that kind of region with the 2 Red Bulls, Ricciardo and Lewis Hamilton. And like I said, it's early days, so there's still a lot to go, and I think we won't really know the full picture of the championship until about maybe the Hungarian or Belgium Grand Prix. And like I said, right now our main focus is worrying about if we're going to be, struggling as much as we did at Portimao here at Catalonia. But speaking of car performance, we've got some R&D upgrades to maybe look at and to purchase into the next couple of episodes. We're actually on an HQ facility event that's come up. Now, this one's an interesting one, so we can decline about, giving our staff a break, or we can agree, take a 750 resource point hit, but the morale is boosted to the powertrain. Now, 20%, it is a lot, but also at the same time, you could gain that back quite quickly, and 750 resource points it sounds like a lot, but to be fair, we do have a lot of resource points to play with. And to be honest, I answered this question and dilemma in a more kind of human way. As a person, I like the idea of giving our staff a bit of a break to recuperate. Let's not be too hard on them. So I agreed to this. We took a hit of 750 resource points, answered it in a more kind of, if this was real life, what would I genuinely do? And that's what I would genuinely do. I would give them a break. So giving them a break, morale's boosted, 750 minus, we're still 3,000 R&D, which is still really not that bad. So we're going to go ahead and now look into upgrades the powertrain or the chassis side. Powertrain is only fuel efficiency and ERS now. That's all we've got left, and then we've got some Mercedes upgrades. So I didn't really think about doing those, because at the moment I don't think we need to. But what we can do is upgrade with an ultimate weight redistribution upgrade. Now that's a massive step forward, you can see, on the chassis side of things. That will take us ahead of Ferrari, Red Bull, Alpine, and level peg with McLaren just about there. And then we'll be just lacking against Mercedes. So that's a massive upgrade that will come in just in time for the Monaco Grand Prix. Obviously a place where downforce and your chassis has to be both in tandem very good. So that's going to be promising. And I actually forgot that we still have a DRS upgrade that failed on the car. So we repurchased that as well. So once that upgrade comes in, we'll have a maxed out aero for the car, which is pretty damn exciting. But into this race weekend, we don't have any upgrades, but neither do McLaren, Ferrari as well. Mercedes, though, bring an upgrade, so they are now firmly back into the lead in terms of R&D on paper, but we know that is a different case when it comes to the actual on-track performance. Red Bull slight upgrade with Alpine in the same vein, and then Aston Martin continue to make strides to get back to where they were maybe in Season 2 as they overtake Williams finally in the R&D graph. It was a little bit embarrassing to be there for them considering where they were in Season 2, so kind of good to see about that. But that kind of means, I don't know, we've got no upgrades, but our rivals don't, but our rivals were much quicker at Portimao. This is not Portimao, but as I said, there are similarities, so let's see. It is an overcast race weekend right now. There is no rain on the way, but there's just a chance of rain, so that's why it's very overcast, basically. A bit doom and gloom. Let's hope that's not going to be a kind of, sign of things to come for us. So here we are then in Q1. The main goal, obviously, just trying to get through it into the second session, but also just getting a feeler for the circuit. Obviously we come to every circuit now in Season 3 with a lot higher downforce than we maybe had, apart from maybe the couple last races of Season 2 where we already had that aero come in, but a lot of them, we didn't have those 2 ultimate aero upgrades that we only got for the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. So actually all the way up to the last race of the season, this is the highest downforce we've ever had for every circuit, so it is kind of a new world in terms of pushing the limit. limit. You know, there's, you know, obviously finding the limit of the car, but then finding the limit of this new car where, you know, the brake zone I had last season is different, the kind of turning is different, and so it's always quite tricky to know where that limit is in Q1. So I guess that's kind of maybe why consistently I'm always a lot slower in Q1, and then we speed up in Q2 and Q3 in terms of our lap time, because I'm just kind of finding more about where the limit is every single lap we do in qualifying. So Q2 then, nice and sunny now, and that first lap I thought was pretty okay there, but ended up being P9, 1.5 seconds off the fastest man, but the fastest man is Leclerc right now. He's on mediums, Lando as well on the mediums, Hamilton needs to go again, he's in the drop zone. Kind of surprising to consider where Mercedes were. Mercedes were right at the sharp end in Q1 and are best on R&D, but at the moment Schumacher, he is 7 tenths or 8 tenths nearly off Leclerc. So I don't know what the hell Leclerc's done. Again, a bit of a glitchy time, I feel. Leclerc's done a 1:12.2 on medium tyres, which is crazy, but I honestly thought I could do a better time on mediums, because as I just said, you know, every lap I do, I'm quicker. Sainz and Verstappen are qualifying on mediums here. Lando's trying it, so I thought if I can somehow manage to get through into the top 10 shootout, on the medium, you may remember here around Spain, is a powerful one-stop. You know, we saw Sergio Perez win here with a one-stop medium to hard, so let's try it. So at the moment in Sector 1 then, we are only just about quicker, but then into this next left-hander, gaining a little bit of time on the exit there, and we're 1/10 up, and you know, it's so close that 1 or 2 tenths could do it for us across the line. It is a faster lap on mediums, which I'm happy about, but it just wasn't enough for Q3. You can see there, literally 200ths away from the top 10 shootout, so that's massively frustrating. We are knocked out in Q2, but unlike other circuits, like Bahrain, it's not the end of the world. From P11 on mediums, we can do a one-stop, and we can catapult ourselves to the top of the order. And to be fair, if you look at everyone else, the only man that managed to actually make it through into Q3 on mediums was Leclerc, with that very odd glitchy time, I feel, because Lando went quicker, but he's still 7 tenths slower than the Ferrari. So I don't think that time is like a genuine lap time he would have actually done on mediums, but it is what it is, basically. I feel like, you know, as we get into later seasons, the times can get a little bit glitchy in qualifying sometimes. So for us, I'm actually still very confident, like Bahrain, we can actually aim for the podium maybe, because the one-stop's so powerful around here. But to be fair, this actually just shows the lap times. I was only 200ths off. I'm actually gutted, but that shows we have genuine pace, because on a soft set of tyres on that second run, I could have easily been, you know, right up where I think George Russell or Verstappen ended up, I think, which would have been very competitive. So yeah, there's a lot of positives actually to be taken away from being knocked down Q2 here in Spain with our lap time. So let's go to the grid, see where everyone else ended up in the top 10 shootout, and see what we can do in the race day.
The Spanish Grand Prix has been a permanent fixture on the Formula One calendar for over 30 years now, and for good reason. Do you remember Michael Schumacher's absolute dominance here in that rain-soaked Grand Prix in 1996? That day he took his first ever victory for Ferrari, and we've had many more iconic moments since. It's a sellout crowd of 140,000 here today as we await lights out for the 730-metre sprint down to turn 1 of this 2.9-mile racetrack. Overtaking is challenging through these 16 corners, but there's still a lot of high-speed excitement to be found, including the flat-out turn 3 and the terrifying blind right of turn 9. And as always, a man with plenty of racing experience joins me in the commentary box. Today it's Anthony Davidson. Tell me, Ant, you're no stranger to surviving the melee of turn 1, so how do you keep out of trouble when there's so much going on around you?
There are 3 main things to worry about there, Crofty: positioning, awareness and discipline. First, you have to put your car in a bit of space and make sure you have room to react to what the others are doing. Then you have to watch your mirrors and listen to the sounds around you to get a sense of where everyone is. And finally, just don't get too greedy. Just because a gap exists doesn't always mean you should go for it.
With the race minutes away from starting, here's what today's grid rundown looks like. A fantastic effort from Charles Leclerc yesterday puts him on pole, and Max Verstappen lines up alongside. Moving on to the rest of the grid, we have Sainz, Norris, Daniel Ricciardo and Hamilton, Mick Schumacher, Russell, Fernando Alonso, the owner driver, Gasly, Tsunoda, Lance Stroll and Islands, Joe, Mazepin, Antonio Giovinazzi and Nicholas Latifi, Ocon, Lundgaard, Matsushita and Valtteri Bottas begins the race from the back of the grid. And with lights out just moments away, it's time to go down to the track.
So some engine penalties. We're up to P10 because Bottas is the biggest hitter. He's at the back of the grid, so massive pain for Mercedes. Hamilton knocked down Q2, Bottas at the back. We're at a circuit where I thought they're going to be the sharp end with the R&D upgrades, but we're up to P10 now. And do you remember last season who managed to win this Grand Prix from P10? He qualified P11, was elevated to P10 because of penalty, and started on the mediums. It was Sergio Perez. So I think that's a great omen. That's a great omen for today. So let's try and replicate what Sergio Perez did in this very car in slightly different colours last season and try and go for the race win. It's going to be difficult though because Leclerc is on pole position and he qualified on mediums. He was the only man on mediums in the top 10, remember. So he's on pole. So he's got a good chance of just walking away on the one stop. So we need to try and hope that maybe Verstappen on the front row, who by the way, massively impressive there for Verstappen to be right up there, whereas Alonso is just down here in P9, showing that Verstappen is really dragging that Red Bull maybe up the order to places where it shouldn't be. We've seen how poor Red Bull have been, but we need to hope that Verstappen has a good start and maybe overtakes Leclerc and other people can overtake Leclerc to slow him down, because it genuinely will be a race between me and him. Forget everyone else that I may overtake in the first part of this race. We are racing Leclerc. We are trying to get through the traffic as best we can or survive the first part of the race without losing too much time to Leclerc. That's the man we're racing today. Let's get into this. This is going to be very interesting and quite exciting, I think, by the end of it. It's the fourth round of this season. We've had two new circuits back to back, but now it's time for some familiarities. We go to 5 red lights. The Spanish Grand Prix is underway, and Fernando Alonso, one of the home favourites, with a lightning start. Schumacher, a slow one in our other car, and we've had a pretty mediocre one, but we're on mediums, remember, so we're not going to be as quick off the line compared to the soft runners. We're trying to go around the outside, 3 wide with Alonso and Schumacher. A little bit of jockeying for position, a little soaring away at the steering wheel as well as we hit the curb on the left-hand side. But now going through the right-hander, trying to maybe carve way through. Schumacher with the dive down the inside to try and overtake Alonso. Doesn't work out. Instead, we're the ones fighting. Mick Schumacher, our teammate, dive down the inside. We need to get past Mick. He may be on the quicker tyre, but I can sense already that I am a little bit quicker than him around this circuit. But here's a replay, and let's have a look at the start for Verstappen, and this is exactly what we needed. Max Verstappen off the 5 red lights, able to take the lead. He's on the soft compounded tyre though, so to be expected. But look at the dive bomb then from Lando Norris here. So let's just keep looking at this replay then as we see what went on ahead of us there. So Lando and Sainz, and the two former McLaren teammates, fighting, and to be fair to Carlos Sainz, he re-overtakes Lando and gets up into P3. So Ferrari 2-3, Ricciardo tries to hang it around the outside of Lewis Hamilton, doesn't quite work out. George Russell close behind, but that man Verstappen in the lead on soft compounded tyres though. Leclerc in second place on the mediums. That is the man we're trying to catch today. And on our journey to Leclerc, we have to overtake some cars maybe in this first part of the race. We've got the run on Fernando Alonso. The Red Bull may be good in the corners, but in a straight line we should have this. Down the inside, Alonso though outbrakes is doing very well, Fernando does, but we're going to get him, and we're up into P8 then. So, you know, clearly Verstappen making the difference maybe in the corners then, because the Red Bull still is lacking some straight line speed. We know the Honda power unit lost some performance. That's a large reason why you guys voted for us to switch to Mercedes power for this season, because the Honda did lose some performance in Season 2 into Season 3. But then lap number 5 then we're going on to, and the sit rep is here. Verstappen leads the way. He's already 2.5 ahead of Leclerc. So Leclerc basically is a bit of a bottleneck right now. Leclerc is slowing up Sainz, Norris, Hamilton, Ricciardo, Russell, and Verstappen is pulling away, running away with this. So could that, this kind of performance by Verstappen, this is actually a bit worrying. This could bring Verstappen into the race win picture, because if he gains enough time on Leclerc, even with the 2-stop, he could be, you know, a lot closer than we maybe want at the end of this race. And so myself and Leclerc could have Verstappen for company, and he could be on a quicker medium tyre, remember, by the end of the race. So let's watch out for that. But Verstappen doing a fantastic job right now in P1, it must be said, and Leclerc backing everyone up into us, basically. So he's actually helping us out a bit as we now go for a move on George Russell, cutting it fine. Oh my god, George Russell not deciding where he wants to go on into that corner until the last minute, and that meant I had to back out of that, and that was squeaky bum time, I think is the correct term really there, because that was so fine. I thought I was going to go to the inside, but then in the end Russell moved towards the middle, so I kind of dodged to the outside. But look how close this was. Remember, we've got simulation damage, so if I actually made contact here, that would have been my front wing damage, maybe even Russell's rear end damage, but that was literally millimeters away from making contact there. So that was very, very sketchy, but we made it through. We're into P7, and now Hamilton is in for his first pit stop. So already then, that's an insight into the soft compound tyre starting to wear out, but also at the same time, that could just be Hamilton and Mercedes struggling. We've seen them be a little bit more aggressive with the strategy because their tyre wear is not as good as other teams, but we've caught up to Ricciardo, so that would indicate that our tyre now is the better one. Ricciardo's in, Sainz as well. Norris continues on for another lap. Verstappen is in, and so it's only Norris in between myself and Leclerc. So once Lando comes in, it's going to be me versus Leclerc. We've got DRS off the McLaren, so we'll hopefully close up to him even more so, and so we could be within DRS very shortly of the Ferrari. Our team asked us to stretch the mediums by one more lap. I will accept that. I want to be on the mediums for the longest time because the hard tyre, like Portimao, the hard tyre around Catalonia, it takes a fair few laps to rubber in and that really activates. So I want to be on the mediums for the longest time I can. Norris is in, and as we go across the line, how fitting, we set the fastest lap of the Grand Prix as we get into second place, and we start chasing after now Leclerc and Bottas, who is at the back of the grid. He's already being lapped, so what a dismal race this is for the Season 1 world champion, remember, as he's being lapped by the race leaders here, and he held up Leclerc actually a little bit there, so we're already well within DRS range here. 3-4 tenths the gap is now to myself and Leclerc, and this is the fight for first place basically. Verstappen 16 seconds back. He will eventually join us, I reckon, but this is the fight, surprisingly enough, for first place. Already, it's happening on lap 10. Visually, we're quite far back from the Ferrari, but the DRS is so powerful. Leclerc is sitting duck. He goes to the inside, but we're not taking it. We're taking the inside line, a little bit deep into the corner, lock up, and we go a little bit deep into turn 1. We almost make contact with Leclerc, and now we're going side by side through turn 3. We're flat out here, ERS deployed, and we're still neck and neck. The Ferrari is coming back at us, and Leclerc's got some great pace in the corners. May not have the pace in a straight line compared to our Mercedes power unit, but he's got it in the corner. He dive bombs us. We lock up on the front left. That doesn't help us out. We go for this switchback from right-hand side to the left-hand side of the circuit, inches away from the grass, and we're still somehow side by side now for almost nearly 2/3 of this whole lap, and we're making contact now up the hill. Leclerc gets back ahead. We've got DRS now for the second time. We again switch it to the other side of the circuit, round the outside into the last sector now, nearly a whole lap battling for first place, and eventually Leclerc has to concede the position, but my word, that was a titanic scrap for nearly a whole lap for first place on the road, and what will be first place at the end of this race, I think, if everything goes to plan. But immediately on lap 11 onto 12, Leclerc is going to come back at us. We now don't have DRS. He does. We are a bit of a sitting duck, even with deploying overtake mode. Leclerc comes at us at a rate of knots. We squeeze him a little bit. We can't really do too much. We're trying to outbrake him into turn 1, take the inside line for turn 2. Easy does it on the throttle. We need to give him the space on the inside there, but we're just going to pull around the outside. He cuts in and tucks in to take the racing line, and eventually on lap 13, not too long later, Leclerc comes in for an earlier pit stop than I thought he was going to do, because remember, our engineer asked us to move our pit stop to lap 15, so we're going 2 laps longer than Leclerc, so we may lose track position due to the tyre wear of this of the medium tyre here. And Verstappen, well, Verstappen is only about 8.6 seconds behind us, so he's caught us up quite a fair bit. He's got monstrous pace, it would seem, on the soft compound and the medium. So I think Verstappen will feature at the end of this race. He will catch us up. There's no mistake in my mind that he will catch us up. So it's going to be me, v Leclerc, v Verstappen. That is a very exciting prospect of a battle, those two. But we come in then, it's going to be an awkward pit stop, because I said this before in previous videos. Look at how this game releases us. I can't undo the pit limiter for like 3 seconds there as we cross the line, because for whatever reason the animation locks itself there. But it's fine, it doesn't matter, because we haven't actually lost track position. The hard compound, like what did I say? It takes so many laps to heat up that it doesn't matter that we've got tyre wear on the medium compound. We stay ahead of Leclerc despite going 2 laps longer on the hard. So right now, as we go to lap 17 then in these highlights, this is the sit rep then. Verstappen is in the lead again. Lando Norris in second. Russell in a very tasty third place right now. So that obviously they'll move down the order because everyone has to make a second pit stop apart from myself and Leclerc. But Russell doing a very good job to keep on the back of Lando Norris. Then you've got Sainz behind Leclerc, ahead of Ricciardo, who's close behind, and Alonso closing up. So there may be a fight brewing between Sainz, Ricciardo, and Alonso maybe later in this race. And then behind Fernando Alonso, we've got Lewis Hamilton and Mick Schumacher rounding out the top 10. But, Alonso down here in P8, again showing what a great job Verstappen is doing on the other side of the garage. The fact that Alonso, a 92 rated driver still in this game, is down in P8 in that Red Bull car. Schumacher, our teammate, P10, having a quiet race, but to be honest, this, I'm not that surprised because Schumacher still has a lot to learn, and to be fair, from where he was on the grid on a 2-stop, it's going to be difficult to do much. I'm actually happy, though, he's on the back of Hamilton, though, at least. He's pressurizing Hamilton, so that's at least a positive take from that kind of end. But one positive I'm not taking is, at the moment, look at the gap that we've got to Russell now on lap 20. It's 3.4. The gap was only 1.5 when I left the pit lane. Russell in the Alpine is pulling away from us at a rate of knots on those medium tyres. So I can only imagine the pace Verstappen's going to have on fresh mediums. Because remember, these are worn out mediums. They're about to make their pit stop in the next lap or two. So the fact that Russell's pulling away that quickly on worn mediums versus a hard compound. I know the hards still need to warm up, but that's very worrying for the pace that Verstappen may have. And also at the same time, my engine is wearing out. So the Mercedes engine may be very quick, but we've seen they've had reliability issues. How many reliability issues did the McLaren and Ricciardo have last season? So this may be something we need to look at and worry about as the season goes on, the reliability of the Mercedes PU. Verstappen now is in, and he was dangerously close to the pit lane exit there, so I think he's only going to be a couple of seconds behind myself and Leclerc here. Leclerc so far keeping me honest, but also not bothering me too much. He's just kind of in within 1 second, 7/10, hovering around then. Norris and Russell are now in, so we now officially take back the lead of this Spanish Grand Prix. Leclerc into P2, and look at that, Verstappen fast up the Grand Prix already, and he's 4 seconds behind us. So this race is not over now. We've got 11 laps to go. Can we hold off Leclerc? And more importantly, can we hold off Verstappen? Well, on to lap 23, Verstappen now 2.2 the gap is to Leclerc. Leclerc, as I said, hovering around 5 to 7/10. But the man in white, yellow and red is on a charge there, and every corner, every lap, he is gaining time on the fresh medium tyres. And we've seen how quick he's been all race long, and he's just getting closer and closer. Already gained about 2/10 there. Meanwhile, Lando Norris in P4 then, doing a solid job, the most he can, the championship leader there. George Russell, fabulous job in P6, it must be said. This is where I thought Alpine would be in the first few races. So this is where now Russell is taking the team to, and where I thought they would be looking at the R&D chart. Then you've got Ricciardo, Alonso close together with Carlos Sainz. Hamilton in a bit of a world of his own, being chased after somewhat by Mick Schumacher. Schumacher doing well to just be in the pointer, I think, ahead of Esteban Ocon, the other Alpine. And then Gasly, well, Gasly, he's on the one-stop. He finished in P5 in Season 2 on the one-stop. So this just shows how much the top teams, we've all grown from Season 2 to Season 3, because this man was able to do P5 on the same exact strategy he's doing now in the same car, in the AlphaTauri. So showing how much we've all grown as kind of the top 5 teams, I guess you could say, or top 6 teams. But anyway, back to our kind of focus. Lap 24 then, and again, Leclerc only about 6/10 behind us, and now Verstappen is 1.3 behind Leclerc. So we need to start thinking about what we're going to do when Verstappen comes and inevitably closes up to Leclerc and ourselves. Now, the thing with Leclerc is I've kept him at arm's length. He is keeping me honest, but at the same time, if I did push, I could probably gain about a second on Leclerc, I feel. But that would not help me in the slightest, because if I pull 1 second on Leclerc, all that's going to happen is Verstappen's going to close up without Leclerc having DRS off me, and then Verstappen's going to be in P2, and he's going to close up to me with the speed he's got in the corners, and then he's going to overtake me with DRS. That's what's going to happen. So instead, the game plan is, for the remainder of this race, on purpose, I'm going to try and keep Leclerc within 1 second, but at an arm's length of about 5 to 7 tenths, just so he keeps getting DRS off me, because then that will allow him to be quick enough on every straight to hold back that Red Bull, who is in a slower car in a straight line, and so that's going to hopefully keep Verstappen in P3, keep Leclerc at bay at an arm's length in P2, and we've got to hope we can keep doing that every lap, and we can try and get through to the end of this race and win this whole Grand Prix. Now, that is a bit of an audacious strategy, because that involves, you know, slowing up a little bit on purpose to allow Leclerc to maintain 1 second to us and stay in our DRS, and we need to be wary that we don't allow Leclerc to try and overtake us. But that's what we're doing. Lap 26 then, a couple laps later, and we're just playing this so damn smart, in my opinion, I think, in the cockpit. Because, you know, I can see now Leclerc, they're 8 to 9 tenths nearly now behind us. So I slow up a bit on purpose. I brake a little bit more into that left-hander, and I slow up just to allow Leclerc back into 7 tenths, into the 6-tenth region. I've got the back marker ahead of us of Christian Lundgaard, I think that is. So we're going to slow up here, 4 tenths now. That's calm, remain calm in the cockpit. We're going to overtake Lundgaard under blue flags, and that's going to allow Leclerc and Verstappen to also close up. Nearly 4 tenths there, now going to 6 tenths. Leclerc still within 1 second, easing up into these corners, just not taking it as you know, aggressively as I would be normally if I was pushing flat out. 4 tenths the gap. We push away with ERS now in the last corner. We break this slipstream to Leclerc in second place. Leclerc has DRS. He stays ahead of Verstappen, and that's what we're just doing every single lap, and we're playing this to a T. Lap 30, 3 laps to go. We've got some engine wear that our engineer's telling us about, so definitely something we need to watch for the whole of this season, not just this race, of the Mercedes power unit wearing out a little bit quicker than the Ferrari and the Honda, it would seem. But Leclerc still at that arm's length of 6 tenths, Verstappen 8 tenths behind us, and with the fast half of the Grand Prix. But this plan is working. Verstappen literally can't overtake Leclerc because I keep giving Leclerc DRS. I keep allowing him to have DRS, but we're doing enough in the corners. I know if I really put my head down, I could pull 1 second on Leclerc easily within 2-3 laps. But I'm not doing that. I'm preserving my tyres as well at the same time, and I'm pushing when I need to build the gap to Leclerc, but not too much to still allow him to have DRS. And so we go ahead and overtake and lap the Williams car of Mazepin there. We're going to slow up again and make sure we don't lose too much time with Leclerc and Verstappen, because Leclerc and Verstappen get held up by the Williams car. So on purpose, we let off the throttle, kind of roll the car through, make sure Leclerc is still well within 1 second. It's a bit fine here, 8 tenths here, but he's going to be within 1 second through the last corner, 7 tenths. There we go. And now he's going to have DRS once again, and Verstappen can't do anything about it. And on to lap 32 to lap 33, the second last lap of the Grand Prix. Now we're pushing a little bit more, but to be fair now to the Ferrari, I'm pushing here to try and get a bit of a quicker lap time, and Leclerc stays with me. So it's not even me letting the Ferrari be within 1 second. To be fair to Charles, he is also keeping me honest. So he's, you know, keeping the pressure on. Remember, this entire time, I've got the pressure of these 2 quick cars right behind me. Any mistake, any blunder, they're going to get P1. I'm going to lose this first place. But right now, the last lap of the Grand Prix, we are just doing enough to make sure we hold this through. Verstappen, this man, he has been so frustrated this entire stint because he's been unable to overtake the Ferrari or myself. Meanwhile, looking through the pecking order of how this race has gone, George Russell keeping Lando very honest here. So a couple of more laps in this Grand Prix, and Russell may actually look to overtake Lando. It's a bit of a shame there, but also massively impressive from Russell in the Alpine. to be keeping up with the championship leader, basically, if you remember. Carlos Sainz under massive pressure from his fellow compatriot, but the younger Spaniard is maintaining the lead in the Ferrari versus Fernando Alonso. Again, showing, Verstappen doing a great job versus Alonso here in the same piece of machinery. But to be fair, I think that Red Bull is just very difficult to drive, isn't it? Hamilton in P8 being pressurised by Schumacher this entire race, which is quite promising for Mick, so I'll give him that then. He's going to get 2 points today, hard earned, but we're going to cut away back to our POV because this is the POV of the hour, of the day. Here on Sunday, we're going to come through for a fantastic win at the Spanish Grand Prix. A really, really smart drive from us. That is actually one of my most satisfying drives I've ever done on this game, because I've had maybe more dramatic wins, but that was a very smart drive, controlled to an absolute T for the last 11 laps there, and we've won in Spain, the 4th round of this season.
They've done it then. A spectacular victory here in Spain and a massive confidence boost going into the next race. Anthony, tell me, what was it that helped them achieve this success?
Well, Crofty, this was won through an abundance of speed and an abundance of skillful overtakes. Inside, outside, cutting underneath, we saw it all today. And it's really nice to see a Grand Prix won in that manner. A race, surely, that will satisfy the purists today, I think.
The faces on our top 3 look so incredibly happy as they make their way up to the podium. A much-deserved victory and a brilliant performance from them all.
Absolutely fantastic to be back on the top step of the podium here at Spain. Didn't think it would be this early, looking at the pace that we had at Portimao, but we had the pace here at Spain, to be fair to us, actually, and the one stop worked out so amazingly. But Leclerc and Verstappen, I want to say, in the cockpit whilst I was recording this, massive pressure. I really had to concentrate every lap to make sure I was doing that strategy to a T of, keeping Leclerc within DRS. But we pulled it off. We pulled it off from P10 on the grid. We did exactly what Sergio Perez managed to do here last season in Season 2 at the Spanish Grand Prix, and we've won our first race of Season 3. That's not going to be quite enough to get us the championship lead, but that is going to pull us 2 points within Lando Norris there. Sainz falling away a little bit with P3 there. He had a tougher race. Leclerc pulling up the order in P4, but the 2 Ferraris very strong, so I think they actually may lead the constructors here. Bottas, dismal race for him, so he moves down the order to P5. Verstappen moves up, and will this be the start of a Red Bull resurgence maybe, with Verstappen looking mighty quick in that Red Bull? I think it might be, and I hope for their sake it is maybe, because it looked really, really good. But yeah, Ferrari, a bit of a shock to me, to be fair, but also not shocking looking at the driver standings. Ferrari in the lead of the Constructors' Championship. My God, they are actually looking very strong this season for the Constructors. We have a work cut out, especially if Schumacher is not pulling his entire weight, and if Ricciardo pulls his weight for McLaren. Both Ricciardo and Lando could look strong as well. So plenty to go in this season, but this is a really promising episode for us and a fantastically enjoyable one for myself. It's a race win at Spain. Guys, if you did enjoy the episode, hit that like button. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. If you're new around here, then do get subscribed for weekly Formula 1 content, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.